Hello, I am Marsha Marguerite, your health and wellness, lifestyle, and mindset coach. And today we're going to pick up where we left off, still talking about getting to know your coach. Um, Before we continue, I know yesterday we left off. I told you that I was working at a treatment center. I thought I was going to continue down that lane because I had completed a course of study on becoming a drug and alcohol counselor. And then I also got my master's in public administration. But I want to put a pin in it and pause there for a second because, of course, I reflected and I said, oh, I forgot one very monumental stop along the way. And that was my time where I was a part of a mentorship program. So I was a participant. I started as a participant in this mentorship program for women, helping them to get order and balance in their everyday lives, like really becoming organized. That was the motto, becoming organized in their everyday life. And so the person who led that organization was a Christian life coach. But needless to say, after first being a mentee, I went on to actually work for her. And that was an amazing time. It's amazing how, and I know that's what I'm sharing all of this because where I am today, if I look back, I can see all of the breadcrumbs that leads to today. But yeah, that was a great time in my life. I helped to grow the organization, in fact. And I was helping to develop coaching programs for her, for the people. It's so amazing. And when I just reflect back, never did I think at that time that this was going to be my path, that I would end up being a coach myself. And so I wanted to just circle back and share that information. All right, so let's get back to how I began to pivot from going down that path of maybe being a specialist in the recovery space, and we had a great pandemic, and pretty much everything broke loose. And so, just set of circumstances that took place led me out of the recovery space. The pandemic was a big part of that. And simultaneously, someone very near and dear to me died of an opioid overdose. And so it became very real just what my life would look like if I was working with people around the clock in the recovery space, because I know my heart had already been really saddened by women who had gone through our treatment program, because we worked with therapists as well, and they lived with us. So I got close with these women. They lived in the resident that I managed. And they lived there for a minimum of 6 months. And I would see the growth and the development, and they get clean, get their children back. And then some would leave, and we would get the report that they overdosed and they died. And so, once again, I told you that my foundation is spiritual. And although I thought those were my plans, I am reminded that the word says, for my thoughts are not thoughts, neither are your ways my ways, saith the Lord. And so I just had to accept that. And I am convinced that this is the way that God wanted me to go. And I am just so ecstatic and happy, and I'm fulfilled. And I know it's my calling. That's just the bottom line of it all, and I just trust that this will be, the horse I ride out on, because this is really what it is that I know I'm supposed to do. That recovery space, working in addiction, and here's the thing, I can work with people, and I have, not just can, I have worked with people after I left working at the treatment center and working with behavioral companies, because we require, if you're going to work with a coach, that you have to be in some type of treatment program or 12-step program, so you can get the direct support that's going to address the addiction. Because addiction is a different animal, it's a different beast. There's a couple of core components that kind of drive what makes me working with someone in addiction and working with someone who wants coaching very different. In addiction, your brain is hijacked. The drugs and alcohol, you may want to, you have a desire, you want to change, you don't want to do it. But what happens when you're your brain becomes hijacked, and there is a overriding, compelling force and urge for you to use whatever that drug of choice is, because it becomes a physiological dependency. And I'm not going to get too deep into that, but for some, you may need medical attention to come off that drug. It might need to be, you might need to take the drug in little doses. And there's just so many different philosophies and ways about going about doing it. But definitely, I would recommend, if anybody listening to this, and if you do want to have coaching, that you first, if you have not already, you get into some type of treatment program, or in a support group, 12-step program, and there's scores of others that you can research and become a part of. And so, I wanted to kind of let you know that part, and those are the two components of what made me shift. The pandemic, and just some things went on, and that was beyond my control, as well as a personal loss. And so when that happened, I had one of my staff members, actually, she worked for me full time. She was my overnight staff member. And she also worked with another company, and she provided coaching with this other outfit. And she repeatedly would try to recruit me, even though I was her manager. She was like, "Oh, Marsha, you would be great. You should look at that." So, just, during that time, everything was like overlapping. I checked it out and got started. And then from there, I started, actually coaching. And then from there, I had a very good friend who's a therapist who had been recruiting me to work with this company she had started working with. And I finally took the invitation, and I started working with this company. I worked with this company, loved it, great company. In fact, it was a telehealth company. I worked from home, which was wonderful. And they had been doing it for years. So they didn't become a telehealth company because of the pandemic. In fact, they were doing it probably about a good 15 years prior to the pandemic. And so they were like the grandfather or a Cadillac company of behavioral health companies. Excellent. They had a great education fraction as well as the practical fraction. And it was a wraparound services. So the clients that I worked with, they had a therapist and they had me, the coach, and they had us together weekly for 8 weeks. So on average, I'm talking 15, 20 clients minimum weekly. And so you do the math. I've been working with people, and I did that for about 5 years. And what happened, like with all good companies, strong company, financially solvent companies, what happens? The big dogs come for them. And that's exactly what happened a few years ago. The largest insurance company came and acquired the company I worked for. And, it is what it is. There was first what they call that post-acquisition restructuring. And I survived that. And then, believe it or not, just about 6 weeks ago, there was another, I think they call it RIF, a workforce reduction. And, in layman's term, pretty much downsizing. And I was a part of that downsize. And so I was faced with a decision. And I'm going to share with you that decision tomorrow because we're at that 12-minute mark. It's amazing how fast this is going. I'm just so grateful that you all are sticking here with me because, I'm new to these social media streets and doing all of this taping. So, but 12 minutes is pretty much all I want to give in a session. And tomorrow will be the wrap up of getting to know your coach. So I thank you again for stopping by, and remember, lasting change often begins with just one decision and sometimes just one coach.